No one noticed when Elena Brooks collapsed on the marble floor of the DeLuca mansion. Not at first. The chandelier above her glittered like 1,000 diamonds, the sound of crystal glasses clinking and expensive laughter echoing through the grand hall. Ravenport's elite were gathered at night. Politicians, businessmen, crime lords pretending to be philanthropists. And Elena? She was invisible. She lay there in her plain gray maid's uniform, hands trembling, her phone crushed in her palm. The message on the screen burned into her soul. Your father won't last the night. Surgery or goodbye. Her breath hitched, her vision blurred. And still no one cared, until Marcus DeLuca stopped walking. The room froze the moment he did. 6'2", black-tailored suit, cold eyes that had sentenced men to death with a single nod. The Mafia boss who owned Ravenport Shadows had learned long ago to ignore weakness, yet for reasons he couldn't explain. His feet refused to move. He looked down. A maid, pale, shaking, Tay sliding silently into her hair as she struggled to rise. "Get her out of my way," one of the guests muttered. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he stared at her face. Something about it disturbed him. Not fear, not pity, recognition. But Marcus DeLuca didn't know that the girl trembling at his feet was the last living thread to a secret buried for 20 years. Elena forced herself up, bowing clumsily. I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, eyes down. "I'll clean this right away." Her voice cracked. Marcus noticed the accent. American, but rough. Working-class Ravenport. Not trained. Not polished. "Leave it," he said quietly. The room went silent. Every head turned. Elena froze. "So," I said, "leave it." She looked up, and their eyes met. That was the moment her world tilted. Marcus DeLuca flinched. Her eyes, they were Vivian's eyes. The same deep hazel. The same curve at the corners. The same look he hadn't seen since the night his wife died in a car fire 20 years ago. His jaw tightened. "What's your name?" he asked. The question sent a ripple of shock through the guests. Elena swallowed. "Elena, so. Last name." She hesitated. "Brooks." The name hit him like a fist. Marcus mastered instantly, but inside, alarm screamed. Brooks, the name from the sealed letter, the name his wife had whispered with a dying breath. 20 years earlier, a hospital room, smoke damage. Vivian DeLuca, burned, barely breathing. Marcus gripping her hand. And her whisper, "If anything happens to me, find the child. Margaret Brooks knows." He had searched. The trail had vanished. Or so he thought. Back in the present, Elena stepped away, terrified she'd done something wrong. "I'll go," she said quickly. "Please don't fire me." Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he turned to his head of security. "Cancel the rest of the evening." "What?" the man whispered. "Boss!" "Now!" Guests protested. Money screamed. Power resisted. But when Marcus DeLuca spoke, Ravenport obeyed. Within minutes, the mansion emptied. Elena stood alone in the hall, heart racing. "Follow me," Marcus said. Her knees nearly buckled. He led her into a quiet study. Books, dark wood, old money. "Sit," he ordered, softer than expected. She did. "Why were you crying?" he asked. She shook her head. I shouldn't have." "Answer." "My father," she whispered. "His dying." The words shattered her composure. Tears spilled freely now. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "How much?" he asked. Elena blinked. "So." The surgery. How much? $380,000. A number that meant nothing to him. Everything to her. I don't have it, she added quickly. I just needed time. Please don't fire me. Marcus leaned back, studying her face. Who hired you? My grandmother, she said. Margaret Brooks. His breath stopped. There it was, the missing piece. Marcus DeLuca had spent 20 years ruling a city, without knowing his own blood was scrubbing his floors. You live with her? He asked carefully. Yes, Elena said. She raised me after my mother disappeared. Disappeared how? Elena hesitated. She left when I was a baby. No note. Nothing. Marcus closed his eyes. Vivian, does your grandmother know you work here? Yes. She arranged it. That chilled him. Marcus stood abruptly. Go home, he said. Elena panicked. Sir, please. Go home, he repeated. Tomorrow, you don't clean. You rest. She nodded, confused. As she reached the door, he spoke again. Elena. She turned. If I told you your life was built on a lie, would you want the truth? Her heart pounded. Yes, she whispered. Marcus nodded slowly. So would I. That night, Marcus DeLuca ordered a full investigation into Margaret Brooks. What his men uncovered by morning would shake the entire city of Ravenport, and force the Mafia boss to bow before a woman the world had forgotten. Margaret Brooks had lived in the same narrow brick house on the south side of Ravenport, Illinois, for over 30 years. The neighbors knew her as sharp-tongued, cold, proud. They didn't know why she never smiled. They didn't know why she flinched every time a black luxury car passed the street. And they certainly didn't know why she locked her bedroom door every night, even at 7 to 2. That morning, Margaret was seated at a small dining table, tea untouched, hands folded tight. She was waiting. At exactly 8:17 a.m., a black sedan rolled to a silent stop outside her house. Margaret closed her eyes. So, she whispered to herself, he finally found her. Some secrets don't die. They wait until the wrong person asks the right question. Inside the DeLuca mansion, Marcus stood before a wall of photographs spread across a long oak table. Elena Brooks, hospital records, birth certificate, school photos, work permits, rental forms, and one name, repeated like a scar, Margaret Brooks. Talk, Marcus said calmly. His head of intelligence, Raymond Cole, cleared his throat. Margaret Brooks was once Margaret Hale, he said. Upper middle class. Married into money in the late 70s. Her daughter, Vivian Hale, met you in college. Marcus didn't blink. Continue. After Vivian married you, Margaret cut ties. She publicly disowned her daughter. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's a lie, he said flatly. Vivian never said that. Raymond nodded. That's because it wasn't public. It was private and ugly. He slid a document forward. Court filings, threat letters, and a restraining order. Marcus's blood ran cold. Margaret threatened to expose you, Raymond continued, before you became what you became. She believed Vivian had ruined her bloodline by marrying you. Marcus exhaled slowly. And the child? Raymond hesitated. There were rumors. Vivian was pregnant when she died. Marcus's fingers dug into the table. I searched, he said. I burned cities looking. You were misled, Raymond replied. Margaret hid the birth, changed names, moved hospitals, paid cash. Marcus stared at Elena's childhood photo. A little girl, smiling through chipped teeth, holding a cheap birthday cake. She grew up poor, he said. Yes. While her grandmother had money. Yes. Silence. Then Marcus spoke, voice low and lethal. Bring Margaret Brooks to me. Margaret didn't resist when the men knocked. She had dressed neatly. Black coat, hair pulled back, Bible in her purse. As the car drove through Ravenport streets, memories clawed at her mind. Vivian's face, the wedding she refused to attend, the night of the fire, and the baby. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear. Margaret stood beside Vivian's bed, rage trembling through her veins. "You married a criminal," Margaret hissed. "You doomed us." Vivian clutched her swollen belly. "He's not a monster," she whispered. "He just lives in a dark world. And now you're bringing a child into it." Margaret's voice broke. "I won't allow it." Vivian turned away, tears streaming. "You don't get to decide," she said softly. Margaret did, and she did. The car stopped. The DeLuca mansion loomed like judgment itself. Margaret stepped out, and for the first time in decades, fear found her. Marcus stood when she entered. No guards, no shouting, no threats, just two people bound by a past neither survived intact. "You look older than I imagined," Margaret said coldly. "You look exactly like I remember," Marcus replied. She scoffed, still playing king. He gestured to a chair. "Sit." She didn't. "Where is she?" Marcus asked. Margaret's eyes hardened. "You already found her." The air thickened. "You hid my child," Marcus said. "I protected her," Margaret snapped. "From me?" "From what you are." Marcus laughed once, sharp, humorless. "I built an empire. I could have protected her better than anyone." "You would have raised her in blood," Margaret said. "In violence." Marcus stepped closer. "And you raised her in poverty, in fear, in silence." Margaret flinched. "She survived," she said. "She suffered," he replied. Silence fell. Then Margaret whispered, voice trembling, "You don't know what it cost me." Marcus's voice softened, just slightly. "Tell me." This wasn't about money anymore. It was about guilt and the lie that destroyed 3 generations. Margaret sank into the chair. "I buried my daughter twice," she said. "Once when she married you, and once when she died." Her hands shook. "When the fire happened, I blamed you. I blamed your world." Marcus closed his eyes. "I searched for the baby," he said quietly. "I know," Margaret replied. "I watched from the shadows." His eyes snapped open. "You what?" "I saw you lose yourself," she said. "I saw you burn men alive searching. I knew if you found her then, she would have been swallowed by revenge." "So you hid her?" "Yes." "You let her father rot in debt." Margaret's breath caught. "That wasn't my doing." Marcus leaned forward. "Her father is dying." Margaret stiffened. "What?" "Cancer. Late stage. Surgery might save him." Margaret's face crumbled. "Elena didn't tell me," she whispered. "She didn't think you'd care." Margaret bowed her head. "I was wrong," she said. "About everything." Marcus studied her. "You arranged for her to work in my house." Margaret looked up, eyes burning. "I wanted you to see her." He froze. "You wanted me to find her." "Yes," Margaret said, "but on your knees, not with a gun." Marcus stared at her, and for the first time in years, the Mafia boss felt something close to shame. Elena sat beside her father's hospital bed, holding his frail hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know how to save you." Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Your father's surgery is approved. All expenses covered." She gasped. Another message followed. "Come to the DeLuca mansion tomorrow. Everything changes." Elena's heart thundered. Marcus DeLuca stood alone that night, staring at an old photograph of Vivian. "I found her," he whispered. But the truth hadn't fully surfaced yet, because the next revelation would force the most feared man in Ravenport to bow. The hospital corridor smelled of disinfectant and quiet fear. Elena Brooks sat alone on a cold metal bench, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had turned white. Across from her, a digital clock blinked relentlessly. 6:42 a.m. Her father had been taken into surgery 23 minutes earlier. Every second felt like a lifetime. She hadn't slept. Not after the message. Not after the black SUV arrived at her grandmother's house before dawn. Not after the realization that Marcus DeLuca, the man whose name alone froze the city, had just paid for a surgery she could never afford. She didn't understand why, and that terrified her more than the waiting. Sometimes help doesn't come dressed as kindness. Sometimes it comes wearing power and carrying questions. The hospital doors opened quietly. Men in dark suits stepped in first, scanning the corridor. Then Marcus DeLuca entered. No announcement, no entourage noise, just presence. The nurses froze. Doctors lowered their voices. Even the air felt heavier. Elena stood instinctively, panic rising in her chest. "Sir," she began. Marcus raised a hand gently. "Sit," he said. His voice was calm, controlled, but his eyes betrayed something unfamiliar. "Concern. I won't stay long," he added. "I just came to make sure everything is in place." Elena swallowed hard. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. There it was, the question he'd been avoiding. Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked through the glass window into the operating room, where surgeons moved swiftly around her father's fragile body. "Because," he said finally, 20 years ago, I failed someone." Elena frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," he replied. "Soon." She wanted to ask more. Needed to. But just then, another presence entered the corridor. Slow footsteps. A familiar silhouette. Elena turned, and her breath caught. "Grandma." Margaret Brooks stood a few feet away, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Her face looked smaller than Elena remembered. Older. Cracked. "Elena," Margaret said softly. Elena stood again, confusion flooding her. "What's going on?" she asked. "Why are you here? Why is he here?" Margaret's eyes flicked to Marcus. Then she did something that stunned everyone in the corridor. She bowed her head. Margaret Brooks, who had never bowed to anyone, could no longer stand upright under the weight of her own lies. "I owe you the truth," Margaret whispered. "Both of you." Elena's heart pounded. Marcus nodded once. "Tell her." Margaret's hands trembled as she reached into her purse. She pulled out an old, yellowed envelope. "This," she said, voice breaking, "is why your life never made sense." She handed it to Elena. Inside were documents. Birth records. Hospital files. A name circled in ink. Elena DeLuca. The world tilted. Elena's vision blurred. "What is this?" she whispered. Margaret closed her eyes. "Your mother was Vivian DeLuca." Silence exploded. Elena laughed weakly. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking," Margaret said. "Your mother married Marcus when he was still climbing. When I found out she was pregnant, I panicked." Marcus stepped closer. "I begged her to let me raise you," he said quietly. Margaret's voice cracked. "I thought I was saving you," she said. "I thought love would destroy you faster than poverty." Elena staggered back. "No," she whispered. "No, my mother abandoned me." Marcus shook his head slowly. "She died," he said, "in a car fire, the night she was coming to meet you." Elena's knees buckled. Marcus caught her before she fell. She didn't resist. She couldn't. Elena cried silently against his chest, years of unanswered pain collapsing all at once. "I waited for her," she whispered. "Every birthday. Every night." Marcus closed his eyes. "So did I." Margaret dropped to her knees. "I was wrong," she sobbed. "I stole your family. I stole his child." Doctors and nurses watched in stunned silence. Then, slowly, Marcus did something no one in Ravenport had ever seen. He knelt. The most feared man in the city bent his knee, not to power, not to money, but to truth. Marcus knelt before Margaret Brooks. "For 20 years," he said, voice steady, "I blamed the world, but you carried this alone." Margaret wept openly. "I don't deserve forgiveness." Marcus shook his head. "None of us do." He turned to Elena. "I don't expect you to call me anything," he said. "Not today. Not ever, if you don't want to." Elena looked at him, really looked. Not the Mafia boss. Not the legend. A man hollowed by loss. "You paid for my father's surgery," she said. "I'd give my life for you," he replied. Her breath caught. Before she could respond, a doctor stepped out of the operating room. "Family?" the doctor asked. Marcus stood instantly. Elena stepped forward. "I am," she said. The doctor smiled. The surgery was successful. Elena collapsed in relief. Taze, laughter, shaking hands. Marcus placed a hand on her shoulder. "He'll recover," the doctor continued. "Thanks to early intervention." Elena turned to Marcus, overwhelmed. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus nodded. "This is just the beginning." The mansion lights burned late into the night. Elena stood in the doorway of a massive room overlooking the city. "This was your mother's room," Marcus said softly. Photos lined the shelves. Vivian laughing. Vivian painting. Vivian holding a newborn wrapped in blue. Elena's breath hitched. "She loved you," Marcus said. "Every breath." Elena touched the photo gently. "I don't know how to be this person," she said. "Your daughter." Marcus smiled faintly. "You don't have to be anything," he said. "Just live." But Ravenport doesn't forgive quietly. And when the city learns who Elena Brooks truly is, enemies will rise. Blood will remember blood. And the Mafia boss will have to choose between his empire and his daughter. Ravenport didn't wake up gently. It never did. The city thrived on rumors the way other cities breathed air. And by sunrise, the whispers had already started moving. Slow at first, then faster, then unstoppable. Marcus DeLuca had a daughter. Not a rumor, not speculation. A fact, and facts were dangerous. In Ravenport, secrets didn't die quietly. They were hunted or weaponized. Marcus stood at the top floor of his mansion, staring down at the city that had feared him for 2 decades. The skyline glowed cold and familiar. Every street below had his history written in shadows. Raymond Cole entered quietly. "It's spreading," Raymond said. "Your rivals know." Marcus nodded. "They always would." "The Romano faction is moving," Raymond added. "So is Calder's crew. They see her as leverage." Marcus turned slowly. "She's not leverage." Raymond hesitated. "They won't care." Marcus's voice dropped, steel wrapped in calm. "Then they'll learn." Elena sat beside her father's hospital bed, listening to the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. For the first time in months, the sound didn't terrify her. Her father slept peacefully, alive. She held his hand and thought about everything she'd learned in the last 24 hours. A mother she never knew, a father she never imagined, a city that suddenly knew her name. She wasn't ready, and she knew it. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching her quietly. "You don't have to stay here," he said. "I can move you somewhere safe." Elena shook her head. "I've spent my whole life running from questions," she said. "I won't run now." Marcus studied her, seeing Vivian's courage more clearly than ever. "You're stronger than you know," he said. She met his eyes. "So are you," she replied. For the first time, Marcus DeLuca wasn't fighting for control. He was fighting for someone else's future. That night, the call came. A single message. "Meet us. Midnight. Old Harbor Warehouse." Raymond read it aloud. "It's a trap," he said. Marcus put on his coat. "I know." Fog rolled thick over the docks, swallowing streetlights and sound. The warehouse loomed abandoned, but the silence was staged. Marcus walked in alone. No guards. No weapons visible. Inside, 3 men waited. Salvatore Romano, Victor Calder, and a dozen armed shadows behind them. Romano smirked. "So it's true," he said. "The great Marcus DeLuca has a weakness." Marcus didn't react. "You always confuse love with weakness," he said. "That's why you're still standing in my shadow." Calder stepped forward. "We don't want war," he said. "We want balance." Romano chuckled. "Hand over the girl. You keep the city." The words echoed. Marcus laughed once, a sound with no humor in it. "You misunderstand," he said calmly. "There's no deal." Romano's smile faded. "You think you can protect her forever." Marcus stepped closer. "No," he said. "I'm ending this so she never has to." This wasn't a negotiation. It was a reckoning. Marcus raised his hand. The warehouse light snapped on. Federal agents flooded the building from every entrance. Shouts. Guns dropped. Chaos erupted. Romano turned pale. "What did you do?" he snarled. Marcus looked at him coldly. "I retired." Agents cuffed Romano and Calder as they screamed threats that no longer mattered. Raymond stepped beside Marcus. "Charges include trafficking, extortion, murder," Raymond said quietly. "They're done." Marcus exhaled. "So am I." The press exploded. Ravenport crime lords arrested in federal sting. Marcus DeLuca cooperates with authorities. End of an era. Elena watched the news silently from the hospital room. Her grandmother stood beside her. Margaret Brooks looked smaller now. Softer. "I never thought I'd see this day," Margaret said quietly. Elena turned to her. "Why now?" she asked. "Why let him destroy everything he built?" Margaret swallowed. "Because," she said, "he finally built something worth saving." Elena nodded. "I forgive you," she said simply. Margaret broke down. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, but it freed the future. Weeks later, Ravenport felt different. Quieter, lighter. Marcus DeLuca no longer ruled from the shadows. He sat in a modest office now, signing papers, not death warrants. Elena walked in, holding a folder. "These are acceptance letters," she said. "Universities." Marcus smiled. "Pick the one that scares you most," he said. She smiled back. "I already did." He stood, unsure. "Elena, there's something I need to say." She waited. "I can't give you back the years you lost," he said. "But I can give you choice." Elena stepped closer. "I don't need a king," she said softly. "I just need a father." Marcus's breath caught, and for the second time in his life, he cried. They stood before a quiet grave. Vivian DeLuca. Elena placed white flowers gently on the stone. "I found him," she whispered, "and he found me." Marcus stood beside her, head bowed. "I promise," he said quietly, "your daughter will live free." The wind stayed. For the first time in decades, Marcus DeLuca felt peace. The Mafia boss didn't lose his empire. He traded it for something greater. And in doing so, he saved the only legacy that truly mattered.